Hello, this is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Israel and several European countries have taken action to counter the spread of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. Israel plans to ban the entry of all foreigners for 2 weeks from Sunday night and tighten existing isolation measures. Switzerland has toughened its quarantine requirements for travellers from several European and African countries. All travellers arriving in Britain will have to take a PCR test. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the aim was to slow the spread of the variant.
For Omicron, what you need to do is to try to slow the seeding with the tough measures that we're taking at the border in order to give us time to find out exactly what the risk is, but more importantly to give us time to have another 6 million boosters in people's arms, and we think that would be very valuable.
The United States has praised South Africa, where the new coronavirus variant was first identified, for promptly sharing its information. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said its transparency should serve as a model for the world, and he'd spoken to his South African counterpart about cooperation on vaccinating people in Africa. Doctors in South Africa say that so far the Omicron strain appears to cause mainly mild symptoms, although cases have been rising sharply. In Russia, 3 managers have been remanded in custody following Thursday's deadly gas explosion at a Siberian coal mine, which killed 51 people. The managers have been accused of safety violations, as Pyotr Kozlov explains.
They were taken into the custody just right after the tragedy happened. All of them are just rejecting the accusations, and they are saying that what has happened is a tragedy, but there is no personal blame. What we have heard for the last 2 days is that the miners, they were pushed to go into the mine, even though there was information that the methane gas was presenting and the percentage of it was on a dangerous level.
A young child has been injured in Burkina Faso as police fired tear gas at demonstrators protesting against the government's failure to stem a rise in Islamist violence. 2 journalists were hurt in the protests, which have been banned by the authorities in the capital, Ouagadougou. Henry Wilkins is a local journalist.
Many of the protesters were there to ask for the president to step down because of his poor handling of security. The military police were really trying to de-escalate the situation, often verbally, not resorting to heavy-handed tactics. And then after about an hour, I would say, a loud explosion heralded the arrival of the local police, who came driving into the crowd of protesters at speed and firing tear gas into the crowd.
World News from the BBC. The Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok says he's replaced the country's chief of police and his deputy after dozens of civilians were killed in a crackdown on protests following last month's military coup. Mr Hamdok was detained during the overthrow, sparking weeks of demonstrations. Doctors accused the security forces of targeting protesters' heads and torsos with live ammunition, although police have denied this. Hundreds of environmental protesters in Serbia, furious at government plans to allow lithium mining, have blocked roads in the capital Belgrade and several other towns. The mining giant Rio Tinto could be offered the rights to extract deposits of the metal around the Serbian town of Loznica. Green activists say this would pollute land and water supplies. Rio Tinto says it would invest more than $2 billion and follow all environmental rules. A powerful storm that's hit Britain is now known to have killed at least 3 people. Gale force winds of up to 160 kilometres per hour brought trees crashing down and knocked out power to tens of thousands of homes. In men's football, Palmeiras of Brazil have won South America's biggest competition, the Copa Libertadores, for the 2nd successive year. They beat Flamengo, also of Brazil, 2-1 after extra time. Our correspondent Tim Vickery was at the match.
Palmeiras are the football champions of South America. They're the first team in 20 years to successfully defend their crown. It was a classic puncher versus counter-puncher, with Palmeiras defending deep after taking an early lead through Rafael Veiga. Inside the last 20 minutes, Flamengo pressure finally paid off with Gabriel Barbosa equalising. But early in extra time, a mistake from Andreas Pereira gave substitute Davison the chance to clinch the title for Palmeiras, who will now represent South America in February's Club World Cup.
BBC News.